Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 13. It's called Armageddon Game. So spoilers for the episode, as always. This one's about O'Brien and Bashir, who are helping two different alien races eradicate a bioweapon that they used on each other during some big war between their two planets. But they've found peace, they've signed a peace treaty, and the Federation's, via these two, are helping them get rid of it. Like, just make sure every last trace of this bioweapon is removed. However, disaster arises when a couple of soldiers from one of the alien sides tries to kill everyone in the room when they're disposing of the last vials. And Bashir and O'Brien end up stranded on the planet below, having just fought for their lives, whilst everyone else back at Deep Space Nine thinks they're dead because that's what the leader of one of the alien races has told them. So that's the setup of the episode. So we'll get into everything. How did you feel about this one?
I quite liked it. I think Bashir and O'Brien are a fun pairing because they're quite antagonistic with each other. And this, it's a point where the writers, they know that. They know what they're doing with this pairing. And I think this episode really does a good job with that and has quite a few comedy beats along with the more serious stuff that goes on.
Yeah, because I think what's interesting about this premise is that the Deep Space Nine characters are basically told that they're dead, and for the most part, kind of have to accept it as the truth, at least for a good portion of the episode. Don't get me wrong, I did get excited because this one of the leaders of these two alien races comes to see Cisco. They both come actually and tell him what happened, but of course their story is wildly different from what we saw. We saw two armed people break out of the room and start shooting people.
They show us footage of like something going wrong and everyone getting vaporized.
Well, they say it first. They don't. I mean, they give Cisco the footage, but they leave, and then Cisco watches it afterwards, and he shows it to the other main characters, and they. And one of the exciting parts for me was like Odo just stepping forward and watching closely, and I'm like, oh, he smells something. He smells, because we know it's fake. We the audience know it's fake, but Odo's sensing something fishy here. So all of the scenes in Deep Space Nine, I thought, were all really good in different ways. Some were a bit more emotional, like Cisco like taking the heavy task of having to go tell Keiko that her husband's dead, and that's that. But then you've also got scenes like in the bar and Quark's toast to the fallen. First of all, drinks on the house. This has hit Quark hard.
Yeah, like you said, they were valuable paying customers.
This reminds me of Rule 57. It was 57 because I just watched it.
I knew it was 50 something. I was going to guess 54. Yeah.
Oh, a good customer's as rare as the latinum. Treasure them.
And he delivers it with such sincerity.
Oh yeah, he believes it. He's not cracking a joke. He is being dead serious when he says this and then takes a drink in their honor.
Yeah, he's like, oh man, they were good customers. They were going to keep paying for years.
Yeah, so there's moments for levity, and that's the only Quark scene in the whole episode, which makes sense. It's given the focus of the episode, you wouldn't expect to see
it. It's not a Quark episode, but it's still a great scene.
No, and it's not even an Odo thing. Odo has that one scene where he's with everyone else and gets suspicious. Kira has pretty much not much more than that, but she actually kind of reacts differently where she gets angry and starts blaming these other aliens for like, wait, they should have been keeping them safe. Like, this isn't right. Like, something. So she kind of also suspects something's off, but not in the same way that Odo does. Odo suspects, oh, like they're hiding something. Kira's like, I suspect this is their fault.
Yeah, this is more of it's a reaction of grief, though, right? It's anger, like just finding someone to blame.
Aye, but it feels in character for her though to do that.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was getting to. It feels very her to blame someone, as like she's not saying, "Oh, they did this intentionally." She's not saying it was obviously, they did, but she's not saying that. She thinks it's like malpractice, basically.
Yeah, so just seeing their different reactions is interesting. And of course, it's Keiko who ultimately comes to see Cisco. And I kind of like called this, like, how are they going to find out that they've been lied to? And I was thinking, oh, someone's going to notice something in the video that doesn't make any sense. And Keiko comes in, and her smoking gun, and do you know what? I noticed this when they watched the footage back, that O'Brien took a drink of something, And I thought, would he have a drink at his console? That feels very, un-Brian. Like
That does not get questioned, though, so I assume that he might.
Surely that's normal. But her concern is about the drink, though. The drink is the thing that's important. She comes in and says, Miles never drinks coffee in the afternoon. Look at the timestamp. He never drinks in the afternoon because it'll keep him up all night. Trust me, I know my husband. And of course, the payoff to this is at the very end of the episode, which is funnier because she's right. The footage is doctored. It's fake. And that leads Cisco and Dax to go and investigate. And obviously everything that plays out, which we'll get to, happens. And at the very end of the episode, when she's reunited with them and they're all happy and lovey-dovey, and because she's shown him a mug that the daughter's made for him, he's like, you know what, I could go for a cup of coffee right now. And she's like, but you don't drink coffee in the afternoon. He's like, yeah, I do. And she's like, you do? Cut to credits. Like, really, that's what we ended with.
I loved it. It's pure gold.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The fact that it was her smoking gun that turned out to be complete bullshit, but it happened to be... It almost kind of backs up some of the debates that O'Brien and Bashir were having about marriage being this kind of weird adventure that's, it's not this simple thing you can just define, because that's kind of what a lot of their conversations are about when they're
I think
chatting.
what I like about it is it, like, by having this beat at the end, it actually reframes it as... this was just her reaction in the grief. It was just denial. Like in the same way that Kira's was anger, and Cisco was pretty much straight to acceptance, right? Like, yeah, okay, fine. We'll start sorting out the protocols. Whereas Kay was like, no, this cannot be right. So just the denial of it. Like, and obviously there's that there, but because we know she's right, it doesn't feel it in the same way. But hearing it here at the end that she was right, but for the complete wrong reasons, actually kind of think I think makes it more in line with the other reactions instead.
Yeah, but at the same time, her passion for believing it is what inspired other characters to actually look into it, which ended up saving their lives in the long run. So, there's a great irony to that. It's a really funny ending. Arguably the most memorable moment Keiko's ever had between this show and Next Gen. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
So, I like just that stuff was pretty good. Obviously, the thing that ended up, because there's a lot of like stuff throughout the episode where I think we, the audience, are meant to be like, okay, so this one side turned on the other side of aliens. To the point where they kept talking about the Talon 3s and the Hellerins or whatever their names were. I couldn't tell you which ones were which, and it doesn't actually matter in the end. It's
meaningless. Yeah,
it's not important. The only important part is that there's two races who were at war and they've signed peace. And the kind of the twist for the audience, really, if anything, is that no, they both agreed to kill everyone in that room because they basically are so determined for this bioweapon to never be made again that they want anyone who would know how to put it together or build it from scratch to be killed, so it can't happen. And they just don't accept that people in the Federation would just not do it.
Yeah, there's a logic to what they do, right? And I'm not saying they're right, but I can kind of understand their process to getting to that point.
I mean, there's a cold logic to it, but I think the thing that sticks out for me more is just how untrusting they are. That they have to, like, the idea that they have to kill anyone with the ability to do something to feel safe is just how much they don't believe in just like people being good and making the right choice, which is what a lot of the Federation's supposed to be. I think
if you've been at war for this long, because it feels like it's been going on a while to the point that it's escalated to a biowar. I think if it's gotten to that point, the people in those positions making those decisions probably don't trust a lot of people.
No, that's true. You're taking a really weird reading from this that I wasn't expecting.
I am I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying they should be
obviously
killing.
Not.
But I kind of, in a way, I like that it feels like a realistic thing that they've come to this conclusion. It doesn't feel like they're cartoonishly evil for doing this.
Okay, sure. For me, though, I think the other side of it was more the point, was their lack of being able to trust, because for me it's thematically tied in to some themes we've had recently with Bajor being able to trust other races because of what they've went through in recent times. And, whenever you've got like a TV show like this, and you've got guest characters, or in the case of Star Trek, sometimes entire guest planets and alien races, is that usually whatever the plot is with those guest characters in some way reflects on one or multiple characters or groups that are usually in the show, right? They enhance something from the regular characters, and I think that's what this was kind of like tying into thematically.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, so it's almost interesting that Kira is the one that gets angry immediately. It's like out for blood because she's the one arguably more on the guilty side of like this attitude, given her past and recent events in the show. So, but hey, she's growing. She's improving. It's all very whatever. Yeah, I mean, some nice details about the actual like stuff that happens though is that when the two aliens break in and start shooting everyone, O'Brien does save Bashir. O'Brien's like dead to rights, Bashir's dead to rights, and O'Brien jumps in and saves him, and then he kind of returns the favor seconds later. But O'Brien, like a drop of the bioweapon gets on his arm, and I'm like, oh well, that can't be good, given what it is.
And surprise, surprise, it's not.
Oh no, it's not. But I appreciated that it took a little while to kick in because I did really like Bashir kind of just noticing some symptoms and been like, "Are you feeling cold? Because it's not very cold in here. Let me take some readings here." And O'Brien's just getting antsy because he's like, "Stop bothering me, leave me alone."
Yeah.
But as time goes on, he gets weaker. He can't stand up. He can barely see anything anymore. He has to talk Bashir through fixing the communications panel in this little building that they've landed in. To try and reach out, and I thought that was going to be the smoking gun. Actually, I thought they were going to somehow contact, maybe because by this point in the episode, like Cisco and Dax were on their way to the ship, so I thought, maybe because they're in range now, they'll actually contact them directly and get out that way.
Be.
But it turned out to be no. This is where we get the reveal that the alien leaders are behind us, and they come down to kill them and finish the job off.
I kind of like that, despite them kind of, spending the whole time eventually working together and trying to fix this thing, kind of didn't really matter in the end.
No, the thing they do actively puts them in more danger because they basically set off a beacon to let one of the alien races, because they think obviously one is more villainous because that's the one that was doing the shooting, so they contact the other one, but the leaders have both come down with armed men, and it's like, hey, we're going to kill you. This is why we're killing you. Die. And we have a whole moment where O'Brien's like, it's been an honor serving with you, Dr. Bashir. And Bashir, like, he says it later on when they're back, like, on Deep Space Nine. He's like, I'd like to return the compliment. I'm like, you could have said it before your deaths, when probably it would have meant the most.
I don't know. I think it kind of means more at the end. Because there's no, like, saying it when they're about, it's like, it's fine. We're going to die anyway. Whereas saying it then, afterwards, it's like a genuine like respect thing. Well, it's like, no, I mean this now because I don't have to say this. I'm not like, I'm going to die any second.
Well, O'Brien did feel uncomfortable at it coming up, where he's like, hey, well, that was like a near death line. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't really mean what I said.
Yeah. So no, the reason why they get saved is because Dax does some digging and basically finds the records that two people transported down after the time where supposedly everyone was dead in the room. So they end up just getting beamed out at the last minute, and we get a whole like game of bluff at the end, where they trick them to thinking they're on the roundabout that they're firing at, but they've actually transported to the other roundabout, because there was a runabout that was already there with O'Brien and Bashir that was already with the ship, and Cisco and Dax come in the second one, so they end up switching over to the other one to get away and trick them, because the alien races are blocking their communications. They're willing to kill all of them to sort of end this right here and there. So
they do all the other runabout thinking that they're on it. They think they've killed like not just O'Brien and Bashir, but Cisco and Dax as well. Yeah,
Cisco's outsmarted them though. Yeah. So they didn't have a chance. But it is interesting though, because it's basically like, hey, you've just declared like an act of war on the Federation. So if we get this word back to them that you've done this, then big try. If anything, if there's, admittedly, it's not the important part of the episode, but I almost wish I could hear a little bit about what the consequences are for these two races for doing this and trying to murder several Starfleet officers. I'd be curious to hear what the fallout is of that a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like they almost could have gotten away with the first two, like even after the rescue. But then, it's like, hey, if you fire on us, it's an act of war. Like, that's where it, like, they make a conscious choice now to go after even higher up people. Like, it feels like there should be something for that.
Yeah. So obviously it's not the focus of the episode, so I get why it's not but I was curious. It was interesting to think about, like.
There's definitely got to be like a book or a comic that follows up on that. At some
maybe.
point, right? That feels prime for extended media.
So some kind of a big like courtroom thriller with her like in trial, like being sentenced for all of this or something. I don't know. Yeah, and obviously the stuff we've not really talked about is Bashir and O'Brien, like their actual conversations and whatnot. And Bashir at one point saying, "Oh well, we know that you and Keiko have a stressful marriage, being on the station." Which is also prompted by the fact that Bashir admits that he's not really thought about having a wife because he thinks he'd be guilty, because making a wife worry when he's like off doing something dangerous would make him feel bad. But he's saying that to O'Brien, who's in a dangerous situation, is probably thinking about how his wife
feel bad. I think the thing is, I don't think O'Brien was thinking about it before that moment.
No, I don't think so either. And then he's like, "Thanks for that, Gillian. Yep. Thanks. Yep. Make me feel better." And Bashir talks about how he did fall in love properly once, and he almost gave up his Starfleet career to, just taking up because there was like the ballet dancer's father that he was in love with owned a hospital or something, and he was just going to give him like a job, and he'd be like chief medical of the whole thing by the end of the like 5 or 10 years. It's like he had a whole thing mapped out, but it would have meant no Starfleet, and that meant a lot to Bashir. So he made a choice, but sometimes he wonders, did he make the right one, or will he ever meet anyone again that he feels that passionate about? It's not just sex, because Bashir's like, "Oh, we were meant to have a party with the aliens, and they're pretty hot. I was going to have all sorts of adventures. I mean, you're married, you're basically have no penis, but I was going to, go and have a fun, exciting night."
It's the same way he hits on Dax like every time they have a conversation, but it's meaningless ultimately, right?
Yeah. So it was entertaining to hear this, and because depending on the part of the conversation, I think you side a little bit more with one or the other. Like I think it's easy when Bashir's like saying, "Yeah, you can't do anything. You're married. I'm going to sleep around." It's easy to be like with O'Brien and be like, "Oh, you're being such a little shit. Shut up."
Yeah.
But likewise, when Bashir's trying to keep him awake, when he's trying to not let him die, it's very easy to be on Bashir's side. And I almost want a sequel to this episode where Bashir's the one who's injured and has to talk O'Brien through doing surgery, since that's effectively like what we had the other way around.
I imagine O'Brien has pretty steady hands. He does like pretty small circuitry at points.
Yeah. Stakes are higher, admittedly, but
well, I mean, depends what he's doing in the computer, doesn't it?
I suppose, yeah. Sometimes he's, try to save everyone's lives by making it not self-destruct. So I guess
save the whole station versus one life. Like, depends who the life is, but I mean,
yeah. I was almost expecting O'Brien to turn around at one point and say, "I'm performing surgery here," and like phrase it that way to like sort of like draw the comparisons, because that's what he does with machines.
I think if he'd been in a more stable sense of mind, like quite possibly he would have been making those sort of jibes. But as it was, he was just trying to get by.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean those scenes were good as well. I have very little to complain about. Honestly, I think
it's a really solid episode, a lot of fun, even if it's not particularly like deep or doing a lot of like heavy lifting. I think it's great for these two. Just it's not even that the relationship gets significantly deeper, it's a little bit, but it's not much deeper than the one we had a couple episodes ago where they were playing racquetball.
No, it's a character episode, and I think if nothing else, like seeing the other characters all think they're dead for a few scenes and like letting them react to that, it kind of like is a nice little like signpost along the way in the journey of like, oh, these characters all care about each other now, so we care about them a little bit more because we've been growing with them over the season and a half. So it works well in that sense, where I think all the characters at this point do feel that they've all been developed a bit more since we introduced to them back in the start of season 1. So it serves a purpose, and I think it works quite well as that.
I agree.
So that was good stuff. So obviously there'll be Star Trek Next Generation on the next review, but when we come back to Deep Space Nine on the following one, for episode 14, it's an episode called Whispers, and here's the description on IMDb. Chief O'Brien's world is turned upside down, turned upside down, you might say, if you're on
a lot of O'Brien recently.
West side of Philadelphia. Do you know what I noticed though that he was really missing from like the first like 6 or 7 episodes of the season, or maybe not the first 6, but I think just before we came back, I feel like there was a little stretch with Noah O'Brien for some reason. So maybe they were making up for it.
Must have been like a weird filming block where he couldn't do one block or something.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Yeah, or maybe... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was doing a movie or something, so he was unavailable for a couple of months. But either way, yeah, but a lot of O'Brien recently. Chief O'Brien's world is turned upside down when, for no reason whatsoever, he is being ignored by his family and friends and is being closed out of every essential job in the station. Well, that's actually quite an interesting premise.
Okay, I've definitely seen this premise done on other shows and stuff before, but it's usually pretty solid.
You can see it. What?
I'll say I'm sure there's an episode like this in a certain other TV show. I thought you were going to go down that route.
No, I wasn't. No.
Okay, it's fine.
No. I was just going to say that O'Brien potentially would be quite entertaining in this, though. I can see him getting pissed off.
Frustrated?
Yeah. I can see the potential comedy there. Joe, here's the thing, though. Inevitably, in this premise, he'll find one person who can still see him, and it'll be the last person he wants. Now, I don't think it'll be Bashir, because we've done a lot of O'Brien and Bashir recently. But although it would be funny if his wife can't see him anymore, everyone else is ignoring him because of some reason.
Stuck with I want it to be either Bashir or Clark. Can you imagine?
I feel like I see a photo of him with every other character, because on IMDb they have the gallery underneath the top bit. I feel like there's a photo of him with every other character, so I have no idea which one it could be if they do go that route. They might not. They might not, but I'm intrigued all the same. So we'll see how that works out next time. But that is this episode of Deep Space Nine. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. You can, of course, support all the content over on Patreon. You can also be a YouTube member if you prefer to do that as well, of course. But Patreon will get all the bonuses for the Male Fuzz Movies YouTube channel as well, where all the movie podcasts live, including a sci-fi movie podcast, if that sounds interesting. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We do appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, Odo would shrug off a bioweapon because he's just a puddle. He doesn't. He has no notion for bioweapons. There's not really a joke here. I just the bioweapons is a liquid, and I feel like or maybe Odo and the liquid can mix. You remember Die Hard with a Vengeance with those bombs that are the two canisters of liquid and they sort of mix together and then it makes them blow up? What if Odo plus bioweapon equals
Bio Odo?
I was going to say Armageddon, but sure.